Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's LinkAbility Insights live stream. I'm your host, Lynnaire Johnston. It's great to have you with us. Today, we're talking podcasts. Podcasts seem to be everywhere right now, and it's a topic we've not covered in our live streams before. But we have had today's guest with us before, and it is more than time that she was back with us. So today we are going to be welcoming Fanny Dunagan all the way from USA. So Fanny is going to join me in just a moment on the screen. A couple of housekeeping things for you first. We welcome your comments and your questions. We don't often get a guest of Faye's caliber, so please do ask her some questions and we will put them on the screen and have her talk about the things that you want to know about when it comes to podcasts. Also, we would welcome anyone who is with us live today to say hello and tell us where you are. We only can tell that people are on the show live if you make a comment. So please do just say hi. We're always interested to know where you're from. So thank you for doing that as well. Our team members, Cher Ferguson and our Master Connector, Meryl Cass, are also with us today in the comments, and they will be dealing with any issues, adding any links and talking about with you the things that we think you need to know that we would like you to ask us about or to add links to. So please, again, do put comments in and ask your questions. And so now I'd like to welcome to the stage our very good friend, Fanny Dunagan, who has not been with us for 2 years. Fanny, it's been too long. I'm so pleased you're back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Lynnaire. And your audience is amazing. They're like from all over, international, Australia and US. So I'm very, very honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you back. And also, of course, today you're on the other side of the microphone in the sense that you're usually sitting in my seat. So it'll be great for you to see what it's like on the other side. First of all, Fanny, why don't you just start by introducing us, tell us who you are and what you do, because I think people really would like to know about that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. My name is Fanny Dunagan. I own a marketing and media agency. We help companies create podcasts, live streams, video series, all to help them build their LinkedIn brand, authority, as well as thought leadership. And I started as a geeky engineer turned tech consultant, turned stay-at-home mom to now a entrepreneur. So it's been quite a journey, but I found my sweet spot, like kind of the intersection of technology, creativity, and marketing and branding.
And you do a lot on LinkedIn. I also subscribe to your newsletter, which I get in my email.
Likewise, I follow you for the latest updates.
Which is just great. So you and I have been connected now for quite a long time. And so, as I say, great to have you back with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. And I want to talk about podcasts. So first, let's find out from your perspective, what is a podcast and what makes it different from what we're doing here, which is a live stream event on LinkedIn. What makes it different? What is there special about a podcast?
Right. Well, I'm going to read like the dictionary definition first, and then I'll give you my take on it. So according to the dictionary, it's a digital audio file made available on the internet for downloading to a computer or mobile device, typically available as a series, and then new installments are received by subscribers. But my take on it is that it's no longer just audio. There's a whole component of it that's video. And I'll get into a bit more later, but there's multiple platforms that enable video plus audio. And I love it because there's something about whether you're watching it, but especially if you're listening to it in your ear, while you're walking, while you're driving, while you're on the treadmill or the elliptical machine, whatever you might be
in the garden.
right? There's something very intimate about somebody talking to you in your ear, and it's a huge, what I call trust accelerator. And over time, you almost form a little relationship with that person that you're listening to, even though you've never met them. But trust is formed, and there's this kind of warmth that comes from listening to somebody over and over again, episode after episode. So that's kind of my take on podcasting.
I like the fact that people get to know you on a podcast. As somebody who listens to the same podcast over and over, different episodes, obviously, I really kind of feel I get to know the host, and that is where you're right. That trust, I think, becomes accelerated, as you said, and that's a really good way to define it, as a trust accelerator, because I think that's even more important now, Fanny, with AI, because trust is being eroded, right? And I know that there are some issues, and we will talk about this AI in terms of podcasts, but I think that it's at the moment, the more that you can do to build that trust and those relationships with people, the better. And you're right about the video. I was just starting to watch something on Spotify, a new podcast that I'd not heard before, and now I was watching it as well. And I love that. And often when I'm being interviewed for podcasts, there is a video. It is being videoed at the same time now. It seems to be standard. So I think that we're seeing a lot of changes, that is for sure. So we're seeing a lot of technical changes, which we'll talk about in a bit more detail. But what about the audience? Who's looking at or listening to podcasts? And I know that you've got some numbers that you want to share.
I do. I did some research in anticipation of this episode. I want to make sure we back up everything we say with numbers, right? I'm a geeky, techie person, so I have numbers and facts for you, Lynnaire, and your audience.
So let's get your slideshow on the stage and have a look at the numbers that you're going to be talking about. Let me see if I can do that. I'm not entirely sure whether I can do that or not, because it is here we go. Ray, success.
Awesome.
Okay, over to you.
Okay. Well, I brought these stats for you and your audience. I want to make sure credit is given where it's due. This was taken from reports by Edison Research, Sounds Profitable, Demand Sage. So just kind of pulled from all of them. So all credit goes to them for the research. I'm just the messenger.
All right.
But it's really rising across the generations. I pulled this graph. This is a worldwide podcast listener graph. So worldwide, at this point, 2025, we're probably at 584 million podcast listeners over the years. And it's just steadily rising, though it is kind of like tapering off a bit. So there was a sharp climb, and now there's a bit of a taper. It's predicted to kind of come down to a 5% growth as we get into 2027. But that's kind of worldwide, right? So it's definitely a medium that we need to be paying attention to. In the US, this was pulled from a US report where they kind of surveyed 5,000 people and asked for their preferences. But as far as how many people actually consume podcasts on a monthly basis, we're at 158 million. And so that's about 55% of the US population. So about half of everybody in the US has listened to podcasts that are 12 years old or older. So that's quite a big number, right? When you think about it. And then if we were to split it to age groups, right? And then look at it across 2022 up to 2025, you can really see ages 12 to 34 well, all of them are moving up, but that has really grown, right? The younger generation are listening to things on their AirPods and really kind of moving up. And this is, and then even like kind of 35 to 54, that's still steadily rising. The 55 plus started off slower, but again, it's rising as well, right? So
big increase right at the end there, I can see for that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just a steady growth of podcasts. And then like, what are they listening to, right? What kind of genres? I find this super interesting, right? Because obviously things that make people laugh, comedy is up there, political talk, true crime. True crime is so popular. Do you listen to true crime podcasts,
No,
Lynnaire?
no, not at all. No,
Me
never.
either. Yeah, but I feel like I need to try one because it is super, super popular. Even this is interesting. Even the news, they're starting to listen on a podcast.
Right, I do.
Right?
That's where I do most of mine.
Yeah. Yeah. And then for us, like here on LinkedIn, right? For me, I'm looking at the technology side, right? But education. So people really come to podcasts for a variety of interests. So if somebody's thinking of starting, you can talk about anything. This goes to show that you can talk about anything on podcasts, right? And then why, right? What are their benefits? People are coming to learn, right? A certain topic of interest. 83%. People are thirsty to learn. And so again, like if your viewers, your audience, they want to share something, no matter what topic, there's an audience just waiting to want to learn from them. Yeah. This is interesting. So this is the US side, okay?
Yes.
US side, YouTube has overtaken Spotify as the number one platform to listen to podcasts.
That's interesting.
Right? Yeah. So whereas worldwide, I pulled this up, worldwide, it's still Spotify, but US kind of gives a good temperature of where things might be going. And so it's YouTube. Because YouTube, you have your regular watch videos, but you can also have podcast playlists. And so I'd love to hear whether like where folks listen to their podcasts, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple.
Let's ask them. Let's ask them in the comments. Please tell us, where do you listen to your podcast? I'm a Spotify listener, and I really only watch or listen to podcasts on Spotify. But please, well, let's see where everybody else
Let us
doing
know.
Because
and I'm an Apple person. So
right. Okay. Well, I was invited this week to be on someone's podcast, and they sent me a link, a sheet of all the different podcast platforms that there were. They did not fit all onto an A4 piece of paper, Fanny, no matter how small I made them. There are dozens of podcast platforms. I had absolutely no idea.
Yeah, I don't know who's listening on those platforms, but this is what the numbers are showing.
Look at that.
I know. And then as far as physically where, right? Kendra, Apple, for sure. They're listening, a lot of them in the car, right? Especially 18 to 34-year-olds and 35 to 54-year-olds. And then CarPlay or Android, whatever the platform. And then younger audiences under 35, they're listening to their news that way, right? And I found this really interesting about Gen Z, right? Because Gen Z is 13 to 28-year-olds, right?
Right.
They already have the AirPods in their ears, so they're listening to music. And this, they said it's to enhance their mood, their joy, and coping. So there's a huge like emotional drivers to listening. And again, like it goes back to that kind of trust accelerator, right? You're really kind of building this relationship with somebody far, far away through their ear, right? Or through watching.
That's
And then
amazing.
I just brought this randomly because I know you're a big marketer yourself, Lynnaire. I found this interesting that you and I are huge on LinkedIn, right? But there's still a huge number of people that are on Instagram and Facebook. And I know we'll get into it later about marketing podcasts, but these are some of the platforms that that will be used to market it. And there's a huge Facebook users. Do you still use Facebook much, Lynnaire?
Oh, very rarely, actually.
Yeah.
Because it's just deteriorated so badly. There's nothing I want to see.
Me too. But the numbers show differently. So let us know in the comments whether you're on Facebook much, because that's really interesting to me. So I just thought I'd bring these kind of surprises to you. Oh, and then this is a very unique thing that I notice. So smart TVs, there's, I think 75% of people in the US own a smart TV.
Really?
And so there's access to Netflix, Amazon Prime, all that stuff. But specifically, there's now access to YouTube. And I have a feeling that's why watching and listening to YouTube has gone up for podcasts. And that's because people are putting it on their TV and then letting it run in the background while they do dishes or cook or whatever. So I thought that was an interesting fact to share with your audience, this kind of rise of the smart TV and YouTube usage.
Fascinating.
So I mean, and then just finally, if you're going to do it, do audio and video, make sure YouTube is in the mix. There's different types of segments by generation. The younger one is video heavy, short clips, TikTok style. The mid-age full episodes, LinkedIn, YouTube, and then older kind of emails still work. And then design for the commute, right? So if an average commute is 20 minutes, maybe you just want your podcast to be 20 minutes. So the start and finish at the beginning and end of their commute. And then listeners consider podcast hosts to be 64% more trustworthy than other influencers. So that's an interesting take as well.
What do you put that down to, Fanny?
Again, I think it's that you're listening to them in your ear, right? You're there's something, I forgot what it was, but there's something about when you listen to something inside your ear, it's closer to your brain or your nerves or something like that. There's a scientific justification for it. I just don't know the terms. But yeah. So you just feel closer to the person that you're listening to. So that's it. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll make sure that when we put this episode up on our website at linkability.biz and also on our YouTube channel, since of course we're putting these on YouTube, we'll add that PDF, because I think those numbers are really interesting, Fanny. So I think that makes a lot of sense. So you've had some really good numbers there, but on the podcast hosting side, how can you measure success? Is it easy to measure success at all? Do you know how many episode listeners you have, or how many show followers that you have? Is there any way of telling?
There's a lot of analytics that are available. I use a platform called captivate.fm. So captivate.fm. And we record it, but then, we'll roll it out to YouTube. So obviously YouTube has tons of analytics, but we also upload it to Captivate. And Captivate then pushes it out to Spotify, to Apple, to Amazon Music, to all those. And then you can track metrics and downloads on that platform. I think there's other platforms like Buzzsprout. There's a whole variety of them that you can load to and then track analytics. So
does
yeah.
Captivate work a bit like StreamYard? It's the place then that pushes these live events out to different platforms, and we could be streaming live on LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook all at the same time. So is that really kind of how Captivate
Similar.
works?
Yes, it pushes it out, right? And then you can schedule the date and time of when you want it released. Wow. And then you can equally write show notes, episode descriptions, all that. It's just one more, like if you're already like this show you have, right? You're already recording it. You have all the content. I know I showed graphs, so that's more visual, but like the rest of this is very much audio. And so somebody can listen to it just as easily.
Well, this, of course, started out as an audio event, and it was only when LinkedIn, A, removed the audio platform, and B, allowed us to add in video that we went, yes, thanks, we'll do that, and turned it into something that really is not an audio event anymore. It is really a live event or a live stream. We call it a live stream, but other people call them LinkedIn Lives, because we just think that having people on the screen does exactly what you have just said. It builds that trust. It helps people to get to know us. They can see us. They can see our mannerisms, our enthusiasm for the topic, all of those kind of positive things. Yeah, which I think is really important. So here's a question for you. What podcast do you listen to? What are your favorites?
Yes. And I'd love to hear from the audience too. Let us know your favorite podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely.
But mine, I'd say the number one that I listen to the most, two of them actually, is one is Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett.
Oh,
he's taken podcasting to like a whole other level. Like he has 40 people on his staff just on the podcast, maximizing it. Like they test thumbnails for YouTube, they test titles, everything, but it's outstanding. He is the best guest. Health tips, productivity tips, entrepreneurship, leadership, all kinds of content. And then the other one I listen to probably quite a bit is Gary Vaynerchuk around entrepreneurship. For news, I go to Wall Street Journal, and they have like, I think Tech News, and it's just like 5 minutes. So there's really something for everyone out there. What are your favorite, Lynnaire?
I listen to The Daily, which is the New York Times podcast, because they really go into some of the key issues that the world's facing in some detail in a way that I wouldn't otherwise be able to find. And I also, so news is where I mainly listen to on podcasts, for sure. But and so there's the BBC have a global news one, which is a bit shorter than the daily one.
Good.
So. But other than that, I listen to individual episodes. I used to listen to LinkedIn Formed, which was Mark Williams' show.
Oh, yes. I used to listen to that too.
Yeah, but he's decided not to continue that anymore, which is a shame. And I miss it because it was like what I would listen to on Sundays. And so every now and again, I'll find an interesting episode about something I particularly want to know about, or somebody has recommended me something. And I'll tell you what, as another question I'd like to ask the audience, does anybody have any podcasts about AI that would be useful for me to listen to that I might find not too technical and can actually follow, because I think that's really important. So that I tend to listen to the things that I want to learn about, as you said right at the beginning, Fanny. And I don't really listen to podcasts for entertainment. I listen to books for entertainment, but comedy's right at the very top. I'm obviously missing out on some really fun,
We're missing out, and true crime. I still want to check out a true crime one.
So I like interview shows too.
Diary of a CEO fans we have in the comments. I'm impressed.
Oh yeah, in fact, I think that's one that I just added to my Spotify playlist just this week. So somebody else must have mentioned that. But anyway, let's move on and talk about some of the things that we need to do. I think it's clear that podcasting is something that we, if we're into marketing, that we need to at least think about, if not actually do. And I fully intend to come off the back of this episode saying to share, we're going going to start a podcast share. So just I'm just putting it out there that I think that
I'll
this
be
is
cheering you on, Lynnaire. I love it.
So I think we understand the benefits. We know what people are watching, and that it's one of those marketing formats that's continually growing in a world that is really more interested in video and in audio than it probably ever has been before. So let's talk about some specifics and about ways to get started. If you're thinking about a podcast and you want to get started, what do you have to do? You said earlier that you could talk about anything on a podcast. So let's just start with what you need to do when you go, I want to do a podcast. What's next? What kind of steps do people need to take?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think even before you think about a podcast or what type or even topic, I think ask yourself first, why? Why do you want to do it? Right. I tie it back to like the 4 purposes of content, right? Do you want to have a podcast to, number 1, educate, or number 2, inform, like kind of more be a reporter of news, right? Or number 3, make it inspirational. So like it's very motivational, leadership, that kind of thing. Or number 4, entertain, right? Like be funny, do exercise tips, whatever that might be, right? You can ask yourself, like, what type of person, what type of content, purpose of content do you want to do? So after you decide, whether it's one or multiple purposes of those 4, then you can start to then say, do you want to do it for personal reasons or for business reasons? Right. So I'll go into the business side because that's kind of where I double down and where I help companies with. So for the business purposes, right, a lot of times it's to build up the authority and thought leadership of people in your company. Right. I work a lot with consultants or even coaches that are in your audience, right? Sharing and interviewing people that relate to the topics of your business, right? And I wouldn't do more than maybe like 3 kind of areas, or maybe just pick one industry or one topic, so that you don't dilute yourself too much. So like for me, my podcast, Tech Legacies, it's just around tech. And I'm just interviewing tech executives and leaders, right? And that ties into my business because those are the type of clients that I want to attract, right? So it's be very purposeful about who you want to attract, right? If you're doing it for business. If you're doing it for personal development, maybe you just, like I just recently talked to a guy, Renard Henry, shout out to Renard, right? He has a podcast called Black Belt and Boardrooms, right? So he's in corporate. He doesn't really have maybe something specific to sell or even talk about, but he's a black belt jiu-jitsu person, right? And he's in a leadership position. So he like kind of ties in leadership lessons with jiu-jitsu and martial arts, right? And so that's educational plus entertaining, right? And so I think decide the purpose, then select topic, and then niche down from there. And then from there, you can decide whether you want to do it solo or do it with guests. I follow a lot of podcasts that are just solo people. There's one from Joe Pulizzi, and he's from formerly Content Marketing Institute, and he does just 5 minutes every Monday, and then it's just content tips and content entrepreneur tips. So you just really got to decide how much you want to commit to it, because it is a commitment.
I can
maintain the consistency and then narrow it down from there.
Because I understand that a lot of podcasts don't get past the first dozen or so episodes. Correct. And then they just get abandoned. Is there any preferred length of podcasts? You just talked about someone who does them for 5 minutes. And I know that there's somebody very well known who in the States who does them for more than an hour, sometimes 2 or 3 hours, as I understand it. And it's wildly popular. Is there anything that says that there is a preferred or a best time? I mean, for instance, LinkedIn live streams, they say that the best length of time is around half an hour. Mine are always twice that length, so I don't even listen to the numbers. But I'm wondering whether it's different for podcasts.
Like I used to think there was, but now my philosophy is do what's comfortable for you.
Yes.
And do what you can maintain consistently, right? Time and time again, right? I'm still guilty of not being consistent with my podcasts, and I'm working on that, right? But if you know you can commit to 5 minutes once a week, and that's doable, do that. Right. The podcast you mentioned, I think it might be the Joe Rogan Experience, right? He's the #1 podcast in the world, right? Joe Rogan. And his is like 3 hours long, like 2 hours long, right? And even for my own podcast, Tech Legacies, I started with 30 minutes, but now I've increased it to an hour. Right. And the reason I went longer was, again, that trust accelerator, right? For me, sometimes it just took a while to get the guests to be more comfortable and to open up, right? Because I'm talking about stories and career advice and having them share challenges that they had and lessons they learned. And so it takes a while sometimes for somebody to kind of warm up and get going. My philosophy is you record longer and you can always cut.
True.
Whereas if you can't make it longer than what it is if it's short. But it really is up to the host. You decide what you're comfortable with. I could talk to people for hours. But
I think we're both like that, Fanny, really. I only tend to stop at an hour because otherwise people, because this is a live event, people just start dropping off because they've got other things to do, places to go, and so I have to be mindful.
And see,
of that.
Merrill has a good point. Like his sweet spot is 30 minutes, right? So you can also ask yourself, what would be the sweet spot for my target audience? Yes. Right. So think of your audience. Me, I'll listen to 2-hour podcasts, but not in one go. Like that might be 3 commutes for me, but I like the long form, right? So look at your audience. Every audience is different, and customize it to them.
Yeah, I like longer ones as well, I have to say. And I'd rather be listening to something that's got some depth to it than something that is just short and sharp, which I could see on LinkedIn if I wanted to, pretty much. So, no, I'm a longer form person too. I tend to think. Maybe it's because I talk a lot, Fanny, but let's move on. And let you talk. What about the tech side of things? Now, I wonder whether that's a barrier for people. And they go, because I do find that people, even with video, they just go, I really can't do it. I don't have all the gear. And they're just putting barriers in the way to stop themselves doing it because they really don't want to do that. But is it as difficult with podcasts? I see a lot of podcast hosts with fancy microphones and the headphones and all of those kind of things. Do you have to have all of that stuff?
No. This is your friend, your handy your handy smartphone is your friend. Do not let the tech get in the way of you creating content, right? I think that's key. If you have an idea, just start using your phone. At most, plug in a lapel mic, right? We use a platform now. I've become a huge advocate for them, and that's riverside.fm. And you can hop on. It can be virtual, and you could just start with your computer mic, right? At most, you put a headset to it, right? But now, I have my little mic here, my little blue Yeti mic. But but that's after I did it for a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do not let it get in the way of you starting. And there's a lot more like people that know the gear side of it more than I do. But just get started. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's like anything, isn't it? Practice makes you better at it. May not ever make you perfect, I've found, but it does make you better at what you were doing than you were before. And it's starting to build that trust. The other side of these things too, Fanny, I think, is that people don't necessarily expect perfection when you're first starting out.
No.
Right? If you've been doing it as long as Joe Rogan, then you better be pretty damn good at it. But for the rest of us, we've got to start somewhere. And we're not going to have many listeners on our first show or few anyway. It's like for a live stream, you're not going to have a big audience. But after a time, you do start to build that up. And that's when I think you have to level up and become more professional with it. And as you say, maybe start to look at having more in the way of decent tech to sound and look good. Particularly not good now.
There's a great quote from one of the YouTubers that I follow, Sean Cannell, and he said, "Let your moment in obscurity prepare you for popularity." Right?
Yes.
So at the beginning, nobody cares. Nobody knows you exist.
Exactly.
Make all your mistakes then, right? And then as you get more popular, then upgrade to better equipment, then like work on lighting and all this kind of stuff. But I wouldn't let that stop you at the beginning. Nobody's watching at the beginning.
No. And that's what we found when these live streams move from the audio platform and onto the live platform. We used the first few episodes to try different things out, to see what worked, make all those mistakes that you're talking about. And because if something can go wrong, it will. So knowing what you do need to deal with in advance is a really good idea. And when you've got a small audience. And so I really do think that makes a lot of sense. So let's move on to marketing. If you've got a podcast and you've got it all up and running and you know what you're doing and everything's going well, how do you tell people about your podcast? Because you don't have a podcast if you don't have any listeners, do you?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, obviously I'm a big fan of repurposing, right? And so taking whatever you record, right, and then pushing it out to the platform that you prefer, right? So obviously you and I, we like LinkedIn, right? So that's the number one platform that I push it out. Once I have a new episode, I load it onto YouTube. So the long form content is on YouTube. And then I cut a 1 minute clip out of it, or several 1 minute clips. And the little clips then go on to LinkedIn. And it's just a little snippet of something I said or something the guest said. And then from there, there's always a call to action to then watch the full episode on YouTube or Spotify or wherever they listen to their podcasts. But if, let's say, somebody is more popular or prefer Instagram, then push out the short in Instagram or Facebook. On YouTube, you could have shorts as well, right? So there's really every single social media platform becomes a platform to market your podcasts. And so short form on the social media channels, and then long form on your YouTube and podcast channels. That
makes a lot of sense. I've just recently started looking at Substack as a possible place to put content.
I've heard good things.
And so that would be a good place, I think, to mention or to put your podcast episodes up. A colleague of mine who has done that and connected Substack to YouTube has found that it has really increased his YouTube subscriber numbers, which of course is a good thing because they're quite hard to get. So anything you can do to make that easier, I think, is a good idea. And I like the idea of the Sorry?
Yeah, I also use a newsletter. So I have a newsletter that's the same name as my podcast. And so once the episode drops, then I'll write something in the newsletter highlighting key things that people can learn in that podcast. And then again, there's a link in the newsletter to the full episode as well.
Have we mentioned the name of your podcast? If not, we should.
Oh,
if we
yeah.
do it now anyway. Again,
I
while we
suddenly
can.
slipped it in earlier, but yes, it's called Tech Legacies. So so I interview tech executives and leaders and have them share their career advice, lessons learned, tech trends, and insights.
All right. Well, I think I need to add that. In fact, I'm sure it is on my podcast, on my Spotify playlist somewhere. So I must start to listen to it more again, because it'll
I'm
be
going to be
very
looking for LinkAbility on Apple.
different. Exactly. All right. Challenge accepted. Right. Let's move on to AI in podcasting, because with so many changes to AI, so many developments, improvements this year, it's now having an impact on podcasts in different sorts of ways. So let's start there, and how you're seeing AI being used with podcasting.
Yeah, it's a game changer because the more podcasts you have, the more content you have to sort through. And if they're long, there's more transcripts that you got to read through. And before AI, it was a manual thing of like trying to go through and pick out good clips or good quotes or how to summarize the podcast. Now with platforms like I mentioned Riverside.fm, there's also a platform called Cast Magic, Opus Clips. And those you can load the 60-minute, let's say, podcasts, and then it'll automatically suggest little clips that you can pull out. And then you can either cut it up inside the platform or tweak it further in your editing tool. But it's a great, I'd say they're probably like 80% to 90% there. And then you still need to kind of tweak it for that final 10% or 20%. I like to jazz it up even further. So I have my editor kind of add a whole bunch of other stuff. But if you just want simple captions and of a 1-minute clip, all those platforms, Riverside, Cast Magic, Opus Clips, a whole variety of them. I haven't even listed all of them. They will chop it up for you, and they will find the exact clips that might go viral, or it suggests titles even. It'll help you write episode summaries, YouTube descriptions. I usually take them. I still don't find they're as effective as ChatGPT. So I still might copy the transcript over to ChatGPT and have it optimized for YouTube job description. I'll say optimize it for sparking curiosity and SEO friendly and searchable words. And so that's a game changer. Like, it saves hours of time. So all those tools are available now.
What we do with our transcripts from these events, these live events, is put them into ChatGPT and have it create a LinkedIn article, a LinkedIn standalone post, a carousel, a blog post for our website, an infographic, 3 Substack pieces of content, a piece for Facebook. The list goes on, and it can do it all in under an hour. Now, again, you've got to go back and edit and make sure it's doing things the way that you want. But the point is that I could never do that before, Fanny, because I simply didn't have the time. And the most I could really do would be a summary of the event, which means then that you've got to go through the transcript manually and pick out all the key pieces. So it has all kinds of things have been a game changer this year with the advent of AI. I have seen, and I don't know how this gets done, but I have seen it where people have been able to put an article into AI and turn it into a podcast with 2 hosts speaking to each other. Now, I don't know what platform that's on. Have you? And I don't even know.
I know which one you're talking about. So it's called Notebook LLM.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Through Google. So if you have the Google suite, you can have that. And it's even more powerful than that. It can actually, you could put, let's say, multiple YouTube videos of a subject in there. So all the URLs of YouTube videos. Let's say your topic is, I don't know, cooking pasta. I don't know, whatever it is, right? And you can put in like 10 cooking pasta kind of YouTube videos in there, add in PDFs of pasta recipes in there. And then, so it has all these inputs, and then it can generate a podcast from that, right? And like a 5-minute podcast from that. So it's analyzing all those YouTube videos, all those documents to give you a summary. So that's actually a great way to learn, I feel like. Like if I want to get up to speed on quantum computing, I plug in a whole bunch of quantum computing articles, and then it'll give me a podcast. And then you can then take that and then post it for sure. I do caution, like my philosophy is, I think for things that are like news or informational kind of content, I don't see the harm in having AI regurgitate that. And because you're just repackaging information, right? It's readily available out there.
Yeah.
But if you want to build trust, drive leads to a business, right, you really need that human to create that trust.
I agree. I think that that's pretty important, and that's what you're trying to do really with a podcast, isn't it? And all the key podcast players, you mentioned Joe Rogan, Jordan Harbinger's another one, of course. You know them by their name, personal name, not by the name of the, I don't know what the name of Joe Rogan's podcast is, I haven't got a clue, or even Jordan Harbinger's now, but you know them by the person, and that's where the trust comes in, because it's all about the person behind the microphone, if you like, or on the camera these days. And I think that that's really what's most important about this, because we are losing trust and authenticity and visibility right now at the moment with LinkedIn. And any way that we can overcome that, or try to circumvent it maybe, is a good way generally. And podcasts, I think, are one of those ways that we can be more visible and authentically 100%. Too.
100%. I even find myself, like, there's days, obviously, I do the whole doom scroll on Instagram or TikTok, and then I get caught into a loop, right? And so that's short form, right? And I'm just swiping, right? So at the end of it, I'm like, what did I just spend my 30 minutes on, right? Like none of that stuck in my head. No. Whereas if I listened to a 30-minute podcast from Diary of a CEO, let's say, I learned how to do intermittent fasting, or I learned, a great entrepreneurship lesson from somebody. Like it sticks with me, the longer form. So I think it's worth investing in.
Yes, and I'm a recovering copywriter, as you know, and consequently, I fully understand that long form outperforms short form. And I still think that even though we all watch shorts, and I do exactly what you've just described on YouTube, and an hour can go by and I go, why have I been watching all this stuff I've seen 1,000 times before? And I just think it's partly a downtime thing too, because you're not thinking about it, and you like to hope your brain's percolating away in the background and just processing what's happening during the day. But I do think that the longer form is where we learn and how we can educate other people and help them to understand the lessons that we want them to learn, or the information, the message, and I think that doing it on a longer form, even if we have to promote it with short clips, which I think is what happens generally, then it's a good way to lead people in, because it's quite hard to persuade people to commit to a 30-minute or an hour-long podcast or live stream if they don't know you and they don't know the topic and they don't know what they're going to learn. So I do think that is reasonably important to be able to keep in mind if we're thinking of doing this. So now, where's my list of questions gone? Because we're doing really well on time, but I want to make sure that we have covered everything they want to do. I'm just going to have a quick look and see whether we've got any questions. I can't remember whether Cher put this on the screen or not, but it's not a question. Thought that it was useful to have Sandra's live streams on LinkedIn a
Perfect.
lot, mainly thanks to Meryl, who sends me links to them. So,
Yeah.
And I know we've got one. So she herself has asked a question here about the move to YouTube for podcasts growing. And I think that's really interesting because of the costs. Does it actually cost, if you're going to put a podcast on, say, Spotify, does it cost you to do that?
I mean, I pay Captivate in order to kind of like distribute it. So, so yes, I mean, that's a few $100s a year. So technically YouTube is still free for that purpose. But I don't know if that's the exact thing. I do think it's because YouTube is now on smart TVs. And so like it's just everywhere, right? And then YouTube, the parent company is Google, right? So every time you search, you're still getting YouTube results, right? You're not necessarily getting Apple Podcast results or Spotify results when you Google something, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's still proliferating, like that popularity of YouTube. And if anything, LinkedIn is my main jam, but I've invested in 2 YouTube coaches and like really put money into trying to increase our YouTube channel. So I would say YouTube for me is like my second most important channel right now, as far as distribution.
That does make sense because a lot of people use it as a search engine. I know I do. Yeah. And also video from YouTube is being shown in AI search results now. So I think that's another reason why we should be thinking about YouTube as well as LinkedIn. So fascinating. All right, so let's wrap up with a few final things. If someone's wanting to start a podcast, what 3 steps do you think they should take? What would you tell them to concentrate on first?
Yeah.
3 steps.
I mean, I think number 1 is just kind of go through some of the things that I mentioned, like to really decide the purpose of your podcast, decide who your audience is, like who do you want to serve, who do you want to listen, and then whether you want to do it for personal reasons or for business reasons. So really kind of define that upfront, why and what will motivate you to keep on pumping it out, because consistency, I'm telling you, will be your number 1 enemy, is consistency. So think of what you can maintain, right? Number 2 is invest and try out platforms, right? Like, again, I mentioned Riverside. Later on, I'll come back and put in my affiliate link. But I explored all kinds of different platforms, and it's just a great way to kind of like get started without too much. It's very intuitive. So pick a platform, or you can even do it on Zoom, right? Just record yourself on Zoom talking to somebody, and then that becomes the video and audio just to start, right? So pick the platform, and then decide on format, right? The guests or individual length, and experiment. Nobody says you have to pick one and then stick with it. If you don't like talking on your own, invite guests. If you find 10 minutes is not enough, do 30 minutes. If it's not enough, do an hour, right? Experiment. And then number 3, I think, is distribute, right? Just because you build it, it doesn't mean they'll come, right? Just because you podcast, you have to market it and you have to distribute it. And that's kind of where the main things are.
All right. So what about the biggest mistake that you see people making with podcasts? I imagine that there are dozens of mistakes, but what's a very simple one that you think people should know about and make sure they really do overcome that?
I think underestimating how much work it'll be. Like I'm being very honest and realistic about this, right? If you're going to do it, then you have to commit to it. Even for me, like I still have to commit because there's days like, oh my God, I can't read another transcript, right? Like if you're going to do it, commit to at least a year, right?
Yes.
And then even if it's once a month, then you commit to 12 episodes. You know, if it's once a week, then you're committing to 52 episodes, right? Like you have to commit and then stick with it. It is a long game, but so is building trust, right?
Yeah.
And if you want to have that community, if you want to share authentically, build a business, right? Commit to it. Yeah.
And of course, that's exactly what we say about LinkedIn, isn't it, too, Fanny, that we have to be committed to it and that consistency is absolutely critical there as well. So the plug in there for LinkedIn. And one piece of encouragement, because we have talked pretty encouragingly about podcasts and very positively about podcasts, but I just think that there might be one thing that people can take away and go, yes, Fanny said this, and I can do this. I absolutely can do this.
When you put yourself out there, and it can be said for content, but especially for podcasts, when you put yourself out there, it's a beautiful thing what kind of opportunities you can attract. I've attracted new friends, new connections, people from New Zealand, like Lynnaire and I have never met before in person, right? And yet I feel such a warmth and connection with you, Lynnaire, right? And then so there's opportunities. It can attract speaking opportunities. It helps to develop your confidence. It helps you to speak better. It helps you to wing it and just be authentic, right? It helps you be okay with mistakes and blips, and like you're learning about yourself, becomes a lesson in self-awareness. And then after a while, after you commit, right, the beautiful thing for businesses is after a while, people come to you, right? And because they're attracted to your energy, they want to work with you. So you're not always having to go out to find business. They're coming to you because you're constantly putting out episodes and podcasts, right? So that's the beauty of it. That's why you make the commitment, right? Is that it brings you your tribe.
I love that. And that is a really good place to leave this discussion about podcasts. If you're not following Fanny on LinkedIn or any of the other socials that you are on, then please do. What's the name of your podcast or your LinkedIn channel? I beg your pardon, your YouTube channel, Fanny. Let's get people over to that.
It's also Tech Legacies.
Yep. Oh, easy. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Tech Legacies everywhere. But I would love for you to follow me on LinkedIn or reach out to connect. Share that you came from LinkAbility live show. I would love to see that. And I'm always open to new connections, especially this international crowd you got, Lynnaire. I love it.
Yeah, isn't that excellent? That's one of the really cool things about living in New Zealand is you get to meet people and talk with people all over the world. And I just absolutely love it because we are right at the bottom of the world here, next stop Antarctica. And so being able to...
It's on my bucket list.
Good. You'll be surprised, Fanny, how many people actually do end up in New Zealand. So you may well get to meet me in person.
I count on it. Count on it, girl.
So thank you so very much, Fanny, for joining us all the way from Dallas, Fort Worth, and also to our international audience today. I see there are people here from all over. So thank you so very much for joining us live. Now, of course, we would love to see you over at our linkability.biz website. We have a LinkAbility YouTube channel, you might be surprised to know. And if you're not connected to me or are following me on LinkedIn, please do reach out, as of course we always want to know who's attended our events and get to know you and your work a little better. We'll be back here again in a fortnight with another riveting topic, and we can't wait to see what podcasts all of our people here today come out with. So please do keep in touch with us and let Fanny and I know what you're up to when it comes to your podcast. We'll see you again very soon. Thank you so much. Bye for now.